Dismas, when we talk about healthcare as we speak at the moment, so 31 million registered, 3 million who are in formal employment paying, 1 million informal jobs as well paying. We have a deficit of 28 million who are enjoying these services but are not paying, and that has been seen as a problem. But that notwithstanding, the users of SHA, and here I can tell you for a fact, not cabinet, not the president, they do not use SHA. They cannot tell you whether SHA is working or not. Enter Mwananchi. They are the ones who will give you the feedback in terms of whether it is working or not. And over time, they have been complaining. So when we say universal health coverage is a reality in the country, is a reality for who exactly?
Well, there have been many conversations. Not long ago, I heard President Ruto stating that SHA is working. And during the launch of the 922, the chairman of the Council of Governors said SHA is working. Now, in my view, when you're coming up with a major reform, like for instance in healthcare, probability of everything going smooth is 0%. There must be turbulence, there must be challenges. And in my view, what the authorities need to do is to actually listen to the people who say that SHA is not working and establish whether in fact that is the case, that SHA is not working. Because we are in a space where there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. There's a very high chance that SHA is working, and then there's a very high chance that there are challenges. So in my view, what the authorities must do is listen to the customer or the consumer feedback and establish whether in fact that is material. But even to make it a huge success, we need also to suggest very drastic proposals that are to make sure that a public sector or a public healthcare or public facilities work 100% as it's anticipated. Then if you are a state officer, maybe there should be a limitation that you don't use private healthcare facilities, so that the people you are talking about, the public servants of rank, actually are forced to use public facilities. I remember not a long time ago when Charity Ngilu was sick, and she was responsible for the Ministry of Health. When she got sick, she actually went to Kenyatta National Hospital. And she came out and said it's working. So in my view, for all these public sector goods, we need to ensure that the architects of those policies are the beneficiaries of their decision. That way, then they'll enjoy the benefits of their decisions and suffer the consequences if they're not working. But more important, we could even adopt some of the best practices. Like the challenge we have in Kenya, I understand, is primary healthcare. And you have Cuba, which is a huge success. Maybe there is a merit in borrowing a few things from Cuba to find out what works. Even when you're talking about affordable housing, the people look at it from different perspectives. But at the end of the day, one school says that affordable housing is about wealth and employment creation. There is that plumber, there is a carpenter on the Goretti Road who has had a big contract, to supply furniture to all these houses. Understand, if you look at the demand for cement, demand for steel, it's gone up. There are so many more units, and I don't know whether one can say that there were reports a few days ago that the cost of housing in Nairobi is coming down. So I don't know whether it's because of you get many more units from the affordable coming to the market. So there are many ways to look at it. And in my view, the biggest challenge with the administration has been the communication aspects. Telling people, like for instance, if you're talking about affordable housing, you cannot come up with a sufficient number of units for every Kenyan. There is even conversation that now you need to come up with affordable units that have got a provision for poultry farming. But you see, for a plumber or for an architect who's been sitting without work for donkey years, but now you've been given the opportunity to go and, if you're a painter, you're painting all those houses. At the end of the day, you're going to have income. You can also talk about MSME, where you have PS Susan Mangeni, who's creating opportunities for people who in the past had been excluded. So in my view, when you're looking at all these things, you cannot afford to look at them in isolation. It's part of a system. Of course, there must be challenges, there must be turbulence, and that is the reason why you have monitoring and evaluation. You can even talk about some of the successes. You can talk about, say, foreign policy, and I'm addicted to these international relations. A few days ago, we had an AMESEA conference in Nairobi, where you had and I'm Catholic, so you had 130 Catholic bishops coming to Nairobi to discuss issues, and they only came to Nairobi, or they only came to Kenya because of the stability. And I don't know whether you can actually understand the impact of having 130 bishops who have been hosted at Radix. If you're talking about our success of foreign policy, you can talk about that Kenya was invited to the White House, that Kenya addressed the G7. These are things which would ordinarily not come if you're having turbulence. And in my view, and looking at it from an helicopter view, we must accept that every single administration would be having challenges. And the test of the matter is not whether or not they have challenges, is how they manage